Hello, my name is Mitchell Shipman. I'm the designer of Find Your Seats, and the intent of this video is to try to teach you how to play real quick. Find Your Seats is a card drafting game for 3 to 4 players in which each player is a party planner trying to seat guests at a dinner table and hopefully in a way that will score them a lot of points. Thematically, that means that they have a good conversation while they're at dinner. Before I get too far into the rules, I wanted to point out some things about each character, the components that make them up. In the top left, you'll see conversation topics. So things that can range from talking about the weather, just kind of small talk, to talking about politics or controversial things. Each character will have art, obviously, a name. In this case, I've got the metalhead, an ability. So sometimes abilities trigger when they are played down, they sit at the table. Other times they trigger at the end of the round. They have an age, which age is another way that you can score points relatively quickly. Seating people around the same age together will get you a point. And they also have a gender. Gender doesn't have an explicit point value, but there are some card effects that are triggered off of gender based on the character. Find Your Seats is played with 18 cards that are all unique, and it is a drafting game. So there are 4 phases in each round, and there are 3 rounds throughout the game. The first phase is setup, in which I'm going to shuffle all these cards together, deal out 4 to each person playing. The second phase is drafting, in which every player will take a card from the 4 that they are dealt, pass the remainder to their neighbor. On odd rounds, they are passed to the left, and on even rounds, they are passed to the right.
The third phase is
seating, which is actually playing cards down in front of you.
the last phase is scoring.
So here I've already performed setup for a 3-player game. I shuffled all the cards, dealt 4 cards to each fictional player, and put the remainder in the middle of the table. After setup comes drafting. So in this case, let's say that the middle player is first. In the first round, that's determined randomly. In every subsequent round, the winner of the previous round is the first player. So I'm looking at my hand here. I'm going to pick one of these cards, pass the rest to my neighbor. Since it's the first round, the cards are going to go to my left. The Assassin's a pretty powerful card, so I think I'm going to pick it. Sorry for the glare there. The rest of these would go to my neighbor to my left, and I would receive 3 cards from the neighbor on my right. And I would pick again. In this case, metalhead, because I am a metalhead. Probably should do it more strategically than that. But this process would continue, picking cards and passing them until no cards can be passed, after which the cards that you have placed down in front of you, typically face down in this video, I did it face up, would be your hand for the seating phase. So after everyone has drafted their cards, comes the actual seating phase, and this is the main phase of play for the game. Seating phase consists of taking 3 of your 4 drafted characters and essentially seating them at the table. Your area of the table consists of 3 seats, so you'll eventually be playing 3 cards. Like I mentioned before, each card has an ability, and I apologize for the glare again. Like the Hitster has an ability when she sits at the table, Metalhead has an ability, Flush has an ability. But essentially, you want to try to strategically play your cards so that eventually you'll get the most points at the end of the round. So what I'm going to do on my turn is I'm going to play the Metalhead. When you're actually seating a card, when you're playing it, you have 3 options of where to place it. Kind of in the middle of your table, the left side, or the right side. And you want to try to make it clear to the other players around you where you are seating this character. So in this case, I'm going to say, I'll set the Metalhead right in the middle of my spot. So here I've kind of accelerated play a little bit. I have played 2 cards, one in my left and middle seat. The player to my left has played their right and left seat, and the player to my right has played their left and middle seat. I bring this up because seating is important. The people that you sit next to, even your opponent's characters, talk to each other during the meal, and you score points that way. And I'll talk about scoring a little bit later, but I wanted to bring that up. I want to talk a little bit about abilities. So right now I'm holding the Assassin. That was my first pick in the draft. The Assassin has the ability that when she sits at the table, I can choose a character and flip that character face down, effectively removing them from the game and not scoring points, or preventing my opponents from scoring points. So that's a little tricky, because if I want to remove somebody from the game, like this guy who's going to talk to my hipster, that will lose points for me because these two people are going to talk. So I want to try to strategically use it. Let's say I play the assassin down in my right seat, and I choose to use her ability on the conversationalist over here. So I'm going to flip him face down and lock out my opponents from scoring points because this is the leftmost seat of the left player, and it would normally talk to the rightmost seat of the right player. So continuing the simulation a little bit, is the player on my left's turn to play. So they're going to play the gossip down in their middle slot, try to make up some of the points they lost from me assassinating their conversationalist. It goes to the player on my right, and they are a little angry that I made them lose so many points. So they're going to play the pastor. The pastor's ability is when he sits at the table, if the metalhead is already seated, oh no, I've already played the metalhead, I'm going to have to flip him face down. So pastor gets played, I have to flip my metalhead face down. The round is complete, and now we move on to scoring. So the way the scoring phase works in Find Your Seats is that every pair of adjacent characters, including between your opponent and your outer characters, is evaluated for a few things. One, what conversation topics they have in common. Everyone they have in common is worth a point. Two, their age. If they share the same age, it's worth a point. And third is their abilities. So I'm just going to use the player as an example. So the player would look at the character on its left, in this case the gossip. I'd look at all the matching conversation topics they have, which is 3. I would look at their age. In this case the gossip is old age. Player is an adult, I don't score a point there, so I've so far got 3 points. I look at the character to the right, which is my hipster. And in this case, we share 1 conversation topic, so that's an additional point. So right now he is worth 4. Oh, they're also not the same age, adult and young adult, respectively. So the last thing to do is evaluate the ability, and the player's ability is at the end of the round, if seated between 2 female characters, double his point value. So in this case, he is seated next to the gossip and the hipster, both of which are female, so he is worth 8 points. For every character that is seated at the table, this process is completed. Whoever has the most points at the end of the round wins. I should point out the strategic value of making characters turn over. During the scoring phase, if a character is face down, they do not make any comparisons with their neighbors. So if I'm evaluating my hipster, I would compare both of their neighbors. In this case, the player and the hipster. We have one thing in common, as we discussed before. So 1 point for being seated next to the player. In this case, my metalhead was turned face down, so there is no comparison made, so my hipster is worth only 1 point. Similarly, the assassin seated here would be evaluated. I could not gain any points for being seated next to my face down card. After scoring is completed, the round is effectively over, and you're going to go back to another setup. So all the cards would be gathered, shuffled, dealt out again, and you would draft again in the reverse direction. There are 3 rounds in the game. Whoever has the most round wins at the end of the game wins overall. If there's a tie, then everybody shares the victory. So that's been a quick rundown of Find Your Seats coming out from Button Shy in 2017. Thanks for checking out the Kickstarter page.